All right.
That wasn't loud enough. Now you confused yourself.
No. 2 claps is better than none.
Well, it's definitely better than the clap, that's for sure.
G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of our off-grid series. This is all about staying comfortable while off-grid. So stick around, we're going to be covering off heating, cooling, condensation issues, just our approach to staying comfy while we're enjoying all these awesome spots around the country.
Yeah, so we've been traveling for 2 years now, and I think we're no longer camping. We have a luxury home off-grid, but we didn't start here. We started with a swag, we went up to a camper trailer, then, a rooftop tent, then the camper trailer. Now we've got our new caravan that's got a dishwasher, a dryer, it's not even camping anymore. So we're just gonna run through with you our experience with a whole heap of different heating and cooling systems that we've had over a range of setups, and we're going to go through all the pros and cons of each. Some of the cons you might not even consider when you're buying these things, to work out what's actually going to suit you the most. And we're also going to be running through some of the challenges and things like that you might come across, like condensation, which is a massive issue in tents and caravans. And so we're going to run through our tips and tricks, but also the comments of this YouTube video. Please leave your tips and tricks as well, and let's make this a massive resource for everyone, because this is what we want to make these videos, are just a huge resource for the traveling camping community. And yeah, we don't know everything, so please pop out what your experience is down below.
We're coming to you from the beautiful Warrumbungles. There'll be a travel episode coming up on the Warrumbungles soon on our channel, so stick around for that. Check out that awesome view behind us. We're going to be exploring more of that. There is also a main road right behind us, so we'll do our best to avoid traffic like that. That was almost on cue, that was. But we are testing out as well these fandangled new little microphones. So thanks to our Patreon community, because this is what we invest our money in that comes through from our Patreon, is improving our equipment so that we can shoot more content and better quality content. So massive shout out to all you legends that support us on Patreon. If you are interested in doing that, there is a link in the description below, and there'll be a little button at the end of the video you can click and go on and check that out if you want to join that community and get some exclusive little perks and support the content that we create.
Can I just tell you now too, patrons, Simon's sending out an email this week, so check your emails, because you guys are going to get a sneak peek inside, outside walk around of our van. All right, massive congratulations to Rob and Angela Hillier. You guys are the winners of our $100 Everything Caravan and Camping gift voucher from our last off-grid episode. So congratulations. We've left a comment on your comment, and if you could send us an email at simon@thelifestylepioneers.com, we will get you in touch with the team at Everything Caravan Camping and get you that voucher. Happy shopping. And if you want to get your hands on a $100 gift card from Everything Caravan and Camping, stick around to the end of this video and we'll give you the details. We've got another $100 to give away in this episode. One of the biggest questions we get asked is, can you run your aircon off-grid?
It's the number one thing people say when you say, hey, we've got this off-grid set up and everything. Can you run your aircon off your batteries? How long can you run it for? How long till your batteries are flat? Yeah, look, I think I can see why I guess that is people's number one concern, because I think it's probably the thing that most people think about, that they can run when plugged in, but probably can't run when they're disconnected or off-grid. There's a bigger picture to think about when it comes to staying comfortable out there while you're living off-grid. Yes, we will cover off running air conditioning off batteries, and we did touch on that in our electrical video as well. So if you do want to know more about specifically what battery setup we would recommend and what you might want to consider when it comes to running your air conditioning off grid, if that is your primary concern, I'd probably go and watch that video in collaboration with this one. But I think there's a lot to consider when it comes to staying comfortable off grid, well beyond just running your aircon. What do you reckon?
Absolutely. So we find that most travellers in general are sun seekers. They love the warmth, and when you go up north in the winter time, it's just full of Melbourne, people from Melbourne basically, and people just escaping cold weather.
Particularly North Queensland, yeah. Yeah.
North Victoria could have like a little embassy
yes.
in Cairns during the winter months, that's for sure. And we find that most people are travelling to avoid cold weather, which we think is quite interesting, because in our experience, it is much easier to keep yourself warm than it is to keep yourself cool.
Particularly when you're off grid. So I
Yeah.
think this is the thing. If you're going to go and sit on a powered site up in Cairns, for example, and stay there for a couple of months and avoid that Melbourne winter, as an example, yeah, sure, I get that. You want to just run your aircon and stay comfortable. But we're not big fans of running our air conditioning even when we can. And there's a few reasons for that. We'll get into that more later in the video, but I think there's things to be thinking about before that. But I mean, if you think about Australia's climate, it's pretty, while we consider it to be extreme, as far as on a worldwide scale, it's a pretty mild climate. I mean, we don't really get a very cold winter. I mean, it rarely gets far below 0 degrees Celsius in many parts of the country. And even at the extreme in the heat, sure, we get the hot days, but I think we can be a little bit soft Aussies, I think, when it comes to camping and living off grid, particularly with, like Liz said, with that colder weather. We've always been big fans of cold weather camping, and I think if you haven't experienced cold weather camping, don't be turned off by the cold, because if you prepare well, it can be the best type of camping you can do. Because what we've experienced is the downside to this sun seeking, as Liz called it, running up north and getting away from the winters down south. While we can understand that, your options to escape the heat are pretty limited.
Once you get past a certain latitude, you're in croc country, and swimming is really not an option in a lot of those places. It's really hard to stay cool unless you've got a really good breeze, you're prepared to go for a hike or drive inland to get to a water source. So we find it really interesting, like when you are up north and it is hot, you've only got a few options to keep yourself cool. And once you're naked lying on the bed with a fan on, there's not much more you can do that's socially acceptable without running out.
And depending on what you're covering up, you might find you got a few more friends or a few less friends, depending on how you go. But that's right. I mean, once it really is, there is limited options to cool down. Apart from going for a swim, and like Liz said, there's limited options for that. And generally the ones up in the northern parts of the country, you got to go to a bit of effort to get to them. So by the time you walk back from wherever you went for a swim, you're normally as hot or hotter than when you started. Fans are great, and we'll touch on more on those in a minute. And then obviously the next option is your aircon. But if you're going to be living off grid, it's going to be limited how much you can run that, even if you can run it. All right then, so ways to stay cool. Obviously, number one is fans and just ventilation in general. We find that as long as there's a breeze, opening up the caravan windows or opening up the windows in your tent or whatever it is, if you've got a reasonable breeze, you can stay relatively comfortable. Yeah,
cross ventilation is really what you're after. So if you're looking at a setup, you want big windows opposite each other. Yeah. That's really going to help you out. So that's what I'd look for in a setup if I was not going to specify an air conditioner or didn't have an opportunity to have fans. I'd be looking at which setups had the best cross ventilation for just general breeze, because that's going to keep you nice and cool. So when there's no breeze or you want to enhance the breeze that's already there, by far the best thing you can do is fans. And no matter what your setup is, whether you are a tent or a swag or a rooftop tent, whatever it be, there's probably a good 12-volt fan solution for your setup, and they're the ones we'd really investigate. They're extremely conservative with their power consumption. Yep. Most of them only use a couple of amps an hour, if that. Some of them even less than that. Caravans generally have Sirocco fans. We've got 4 of them in our van, 1 each for the kids and 2 in the sleeping area, in our sleeping area, which doubles in the living area. I would say it is 100% worth making sure that you get them in the kids area, because it's like an additional option. It's an option that you can tick. And some people are like, oh, how much are they? Should I get them? Absolutely. Yeah, they're worth. You want your kids to be sleeping. Yeah, exactly. And that's the time when you really want that ventilation. And often when the breeze dies off is in the evenings. So the fans are great for that. But there are plenty of other. We used to have quite a big fan that we hung from the centre of our camper trailer when we had it. Yes. It was relatively inexpensive as well. I think it was about $40 or something like that. From Bunnings. And we just rigged up a hook I think I just cable tied it to the tent pole. It doesn't have to be flash, it doesn't have to be fancy. As long as you can keep the air moving, you generally stay pretty cool. Because the next option from there is really to go to air conditioning. Now the downside, even if you can, we'll get to it in a minute, but assuming you can run your air conditioning
off-grid, we tend to find that it's a last resort. We don't go to that option very often. And there's a few reasons for that. One is you can't run it for very long. Even if you can run it, not many systems out there are going to be able to run an air conditioner 24/7. And I'd be very surprised if there's many that can run an air conditioner 24 hours a day. So you've got to be a bit selective about how many hours a day you run it and what hours of the day you run it. Generally, if we are going to run it, it'll be in those evening hours when we're trying to get us and the kids to sleep. But you've got to turn it off again.
Yeah, or right in the middle of the day.
The
when
middle
you're
of the
having
day.
your like afternoon siesta.
After lunch, yeah. If we've been out exploring in the morning and after lunch, we did it in Karajini was one example where we've done that. Kakadu was another one. We copped really hot, still, humid weather in Kakadu.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no breeze for about 4 or 5 days and copped
The
some
flies were so thick.
lots of flies. One other downside to running your air conditioning off-grid is because you can only run it for a couple of hours, once you have to turn it off to save your battery power, it doesn't take long for the van to not necessarily get hot again, but it gets quite stuffy and quite muggy in there pretty quickly. So
You've
then
got no breeze.
And you got no breeze. So then you got to open everything back up again just to try and get a bit of ventilation. You lose all that cool air that you've created and you're often back to square one, particularly if you're running it in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
I think the other big downside for me is even if you could run it for longer periods of time is that you tend not to acclimatise very well then to the weather around you. So then you feel the heat more. You tend to you feel more confined inside. It's your little oasis inside, whatever it is that you're running your air conditioning in. And then it can be harder to get out and feel like going to explore or even just to relax and chill out outside of the, and let's be honest, the reason we're all out there doing this is to be in the outdoors.
The pros of an air conditioner, I would say, are obviously they keep you cool when you want to stay cool. I would say they add resale value to your van.
Definitely.
Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
And they're nice to haves. They're by no means a must have. I can only think of maybe 5 times in the 2 years that we've travelled where I've been like, hells yeah, aircon for the win. Most of the time it's just fans on, off you go.
And other times we have used the aircon because we've got it, not necessarily, if we didn't have it, you wouldn't necessarily miss it. It's just we've got it, we've got the power, we may as well. Yeah. But yeah, certainly there's only been that handful of times where we've really felt like we needed it. I'm just going to throw one other pro in there.
Okay.
Is that I think having the aircon on board, particularly in our travels in 2021 when we were doing Northern Territory and Northern Western Australia, is it allowed us to sort of lag behind the peak season. We did some of those areas, particularly the Kimberley and places like that. Everyone was running down south because the hot weather was coming, and we were able to sort of hang around and stay up there because we knew we could run our air conditioning off grid. So if we did get those uncomfortably hot days or those uncomfortably hot afternoons, we knew we had that up our sleeve. So I think that's probably one pro that we maybe took for granted at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, is something to think about is having that backup plan.
All right, so let's talk about the cons. There's obviously the cost of installing and adding an aircon to your setup. Another con is that setup, a rooftop air conditioner is going to take up solar panel storage on your roof. It's heavy. They weigh around 35 kilos.
Yeah, 30 to 35 kilos for most rooftop aircons. Our Truma Aventa, I think, was about that 33 on the old van. We don't actually have a rooftop. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, we're going to
No rooftop aircon on this one.
Oh, I was going to get to that.
Oh, you're going to, sorry.
Don't you be ruining all my spoilers.
I did say spoiler alert. I think the only other con, it's a pretty minor one, but it's just the overall height of the van. It's generally in most caravans, it's going to be the highest part of the van. So when you are, particularly if you're off grid, you're probably going to be pushing down bush tracks and stuff a bit more often. Yeah. You are a bit taller, and not just that you're a bit taller, but if anything's going to get hit by a tree branch or something, it's probably going to be your aircon, which is not necessarily what you want.
No. So something else to consider is other options on the market. So we haven't gone with a rooftop air conditioner for our new van. We've gone with an under mount. What is it called?
It's a Truma under bed air conditioner. So it's quite a compact unit. We'll be doing an install video and showing you guys all about it in an upcoming video on the channel. And while we're on that with our new van, you haven't missed anything. We've had a few comments, people feeling like that maybe they missed out seeing our reveal of our van. We haven't done it yet. We just wanted to test it out and use it for a bit before we did that walk around video, but those videos are coming up on the channel as well. So make sure you subscribe subscribe for that and for the air conditioning install. And we've got one more little trick up our sleeve as well that's still to come to sort out our water system as well. But yeah, so this time we've gone with the Truma under bed aircon. It's called the Truma Saphir, the SAPHIR is how you spell it, aircon. So it's an under bunk one. A couple of pros with that. The big one is a lot of the cons we talked about before. With the old one, it gets the weight down low. It's lighter to start with. It only weighs about 20 kilos versus that 30 to 35 kilos. And it frees up more roof space for solar, which gives us more replenishment to run that aircon. The other thing we kind of like about it, which would be fun to explore how much of a benefit it is that it's a ducted system. So rather than just being the single unit on your roof that pumps air all through the van, you can run individual ducts to different parts of the van. So don't know if that'll be a pro or a con. And I'm also curious to find out the noise levels, how different it is. The rooftop ones tend not to be super quiet. They particularly when they first start up and kick in, they can be quite noisy. So yeah, we'll wait and see. But this one being able to be underneath the bed will be a little bit more insulated to start with. So we'll see. But keen to try that one out. And I guess if you don't have a caravan, there are other air conditioning options. There are portable air conditioning options. Some of them are getting more and more sort of viable now, I guess, as battery technology improves. As I know EcoFlow do one. There's other little portable evaporative air conditioners, which are probably a lot more frugal on power, I would imagine, but downside being you need water. There's some other cool tricks and stuff you can try, like wet towels hanging in doorways and windows and openings to tents and things like that. When
Harrison was a little baby, when he had him in his pram and we'd be out camping, I'd dump one of those muslin cloths and then just hang that. I'd dunk the muslin cloth in water and then wring it out and hang that over the top of his pram, and then you'd get the cross breeze. It was like his own little evap aircon.
Yeah. And I think I've heard, we've never actually tried it, but I've heard if you leave a towel sort of hanging in the doorway of your tent or your caravan or whatever it is, and leave the bottom of it in a bucket of water, it'll continually suck that water up and keep that evap going. So that might be something we try out actually next time we're up in the heat and give it a go. So that's staying cool. That's that's pretty much all we know about staying cool.
Other than wearing less clothes and getting out there and finding a water hole.
Yeah, there's not much else.
There's not much else unless you've got some hot tips. Leave them in the comments below.
Let us know, how do you stay cool when you're out there living off grid?
Oh, and beer. Drinking beer.
Oh, beer.
Drinking any cold drink.
Mojitos, ginger beer. Yeah. There's lots of options.
Gin, wine.
Gin and tonics, they're
Gin
great
and tonics.
in the summer.
Yeah, all good things. If we're traveling in hot regions where the weather is really, really hot, what we do is we drive for a little bit, recharge our batteries, pull over on the side of the road about 40 minutes before our final destination, jump in the van, turn the inverter on, turn the aircon on, shut the van, get back in the car, drive for 40 minutes, while the sun is beaming down on our solar panels and the car is charging the batteries through the alternator, the aircon is running. When you get to camp, because everything's locked up in your caravan and everything's tight, you open your door and your van's already cool and you haven't lost any of your power. You're still at 100% because you've been driving and getting sun from your solar panels at the same time. It just minimises the need for your aircon and doesn't use its power that would have gone to waste otherwise. So that is our cool tip for running your aircon. Yeah,
and there's a lot of naysayers out there, I know, that are going to say, you can't do that. Yeah, you can. I've done it, and it does work. I can't see any reason why it wouldn't work or why it's not a good idea. If it ever fails, I'll let you know, but it is a bloody handy little idea, especially on those hot drive days, to make sure you jump into a nice cool van when you get to your destination and enjoy that little bit of luxury in generally a hot and dry climate. It's really good.
If you try it and love it, let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay, so that's the hot climate and staying cool. What about cool climate? Now, as we said, we're really keen on cool climate camping. I mean, at the moment, we're in the Warrumbungles, as we said, in central New South Wales, and it's going to get bloody chilly while we're here. I
think lows were around 1 to 5 degrees this week. Is that right?
So not freezing by any means, but not warm either. So we're definitely going to be giving the heater a bit of a test run. Yeah, staying comfortable and staying warm when you're off grid in the cold climates. We used to camp pretty regularly, even in our camper trailer.
We lived in Canberra, so we would go camping in the mountains outside of Canberra in winter.
Well below freezing. It was we were often camping below freezing. I think the coldest trip we ever did was with our mates Mel and Pete down to a little place called the Cascades just outside of Cooma. I think it was the May or June long weekend.
It was June long weekend.
And it was a memorable trip for a number of reasons, mainly because we forgot to take all our cooking gear, but it got extremely cold to the point where it actually ruptured the water pipes in our old camper trailer because they froze overnight. So we've definitely done some cold weather camping. If you watched our videos last year, we camped in our caravan, mind you. We caravanned, I shouldn't call it camping, to Thredbo during the snow season and did the back end of the snow season at Thredbo.
Vic High Country.
Yeah, so as far as the cost-effective and really simple ways to stay warm off-grid in those cold climates is just, the main one is just layering clothing. So we always carry, no matter where we're traveling, we have at least one set of thermals each, and they're long sleeve thermals, long john pants for us and for the kids. For one, they make great pajamas if you're camping in those cold climates, which just backs up all your bedding and everything like that. They also just make a great base layer, particularly of the evenings around the fire or anything like that, and then you build up from there. When we camped in the cold climates when the kids were really young, I'm talking sort of when they were 4 to 12 months old, we actually took them in snowsuits. So they'd sleep in snowsuits, those full one-piece jumpsuits.
Yeah, those little cute ones. Yeah, so then we used hot water bottles with the kids as well. So you obviously just heat water on the fire or whatever heating device you've got, pop them in the hot water bottle and off you go to bed. And I used to do the same thing, put water in a Yeti cup or, some sort of insulated mug for warming bottles later at night too.
Yeah, or just a thermos like in the old days, the big thermos, same sort of concept,
So just having warm water on hand for that 3 a.m. wake up call is
top
always
up
really
the water
good.
bottle. We used to do a pre-warm as well, so we'd pre-warm the bed with the hot water bottle and then top it up as they were going to bed and then put them to bed with the hot water. And it worked well. We actually found our kids slept best out camping in the cold weather than they did in Canberra with the heating on in the house. And then obviously heating solutions for camper trailers and caravans and potentially tents as well these days are becoming pretty cost effective and extremely efficient. The main one these days would probably be the diesel heater. Our old caravan, we had a gas heater in that one. It worked fantastically well. So we've got a diesel heater in the new van. We're keen to test that out. We've used it a few times so far. We find it's a little bit quieter than the old gas heater. You barely know, apart from the fan noise itself, you barely know that it's running.
We used to have the Truma gas combi, which heated the hot water and the van.
So it's called the Truma 4E. So it's a gas and electric hot water system. Yeah, the sun's coming out.
Oh, no, it's so beautiful.
Gas and electric hot water system. Primarily, obviously, we ran it on gas, but you could run it on electric when you were plugged in. Mm-hmm. And it was a tank-style hot water service. So I think it heats about 10 litres of water, but it's also the gas heater all in one unit. It can take anywhere between probably 15 minutes right up to probably 40 minutes, 45 minutes sometimes to heat.
If it's really cold.
If it's really cold. So sometimes some element of pre-planning is required if we needed hot water. And now we've gone with the Truma D6 in our new van. So it's basically the exact same size unit. The unit looks virtually identical to the old 4E, except now that it's a diesel instead of gas. One of the drawbacks to this one is that it's not electric as well. It's diesel only. But if you travel the way we do, that's not a huge consideration because the amount of times we ran the old one off electric was a handful at most.
And so I know friends of ours have the instantaneous gas hot
system. I don't think you can get an instantaneous diesel one. You can get an instantaneous gas. I think the Truma Aqua Go is instantaneous gas. So the pros to an instant system is obviously it's instant. You turn it on, you got hot water. Your downside is I think they're a gas only, so again you can't run it off electric. And the other big downside is it's harder to monitor your water usage. Our tank running out of hot water is a pretty good way to stop using hot water. It depends. Again,
you use the most.
Again, it depends how you travel and what your priorities are. But the other thing with the Aqua Go hot water system is, or a similar instantaneous gas hot water system is, that they're not a heater as well. The big pro to the one we've got is it's one unit, one system, does both. So it's just less stuff you've got to have installed in the van. I think in general, we're excited to try the diesel and already loving just only carrying the one fuel source diesel. And obviously if I carry 20 litres of spare diesel for the heater, it's also spare fuel for the car and vice versa. So I think on that side of things, it's going to be really good. So obviously the other way we haven't talked about to stay warm when we're in those cold climates is the good old trusty campfire.
I thought you were going to say something else then.
Oh, cuddles. Cuddles are good too.
I was like, shh. This isn't that video.
You have to sign up to OnlyFans for that one.
No, we do not have one of those.
OnlyVans. So obviously the other big one is campfires, and that's one of the things we love most about cold weather camping is one, you can have fires. There's no fire bans generally in the winter months, but just it's nothing better than cold weather and huddling up around the campfire.
Absolutely, and Simon likes to, he's such a gentleman, gets a shovel into the fire, gets the coals and then puts them under the camp chairs for me. It's like, oh.
If you haven't tried that, it's a great trick with the cold weather.
And this is one of our brilliant ideas that someone else has now done, so good on them because we didn't do anything with it. You know, like the sheep skin vest that you get, like your green one, I don't know, it's like sheep skin on the inside. If you put that on your camp chair, that is just next level comfort.
Yeah, even if you've got an old set of like lamb's wool seat covers for your car or something like that, just throw your lamb's wool on your seat in the cold weather. It makes so much difference to the amount of cold that radiates from behind you and away from the fire. And yeah, it's really good. Yeah, so all in all, I think to sum up, we find that in the cold weather camping, there's a lot more ways, particularly cost effectively and that are available to you off grid. There's a lot more ways to stay warm than there are ways to stay cool. So we'd really encourage you, if you had not got a camping trip planned this winter, get out there and enjoy the winter months. Go camping in the winter. You won't regret it. It's just one of those things where if you're prepared and got the right gear, get yourself a decent set of thermals, a couple of hot water bottles, make sure you got a decent sleeping bag or a doona, and then go somewhere you can have fires and you won't regret it.
Absolutely. And check Gumtree and places like that, especially for regions like Canberra where people do, for your kids' gear especially, like kids grow out of snowsuits in a season. So a kid's probably worn those outfits 3 times and then they've grown out of them. So yeah, definitely check Canberra's buy, swap and sells and buy nothing pages and Gumtrees and whatever for you good snow gear, because you can get really good quality for a fraction of the price. Condensation.
How do you stop condensation?
Oh my goodness. In the camper trailer, it used to be really bad. We used to get it in our zone caravan, which is composite panel, and we're getting it in the titanium, which is aluminium frame. So all different setups, everyone's going to be dealing with condensation. It is a nightmare.
Spoiler alert, it's unavoidable. There's really I don't think there's any way around it.
Other than keeping your windows open and freezing overnight.
Well, yeah, I was going to say there's ways you can minimise it, but I think you're going to get it no matter what. So you just got to be aware of that and just accept that it's going to happen. The only real trick to it, like Liz said, is ventilation. The downside to ventilation is it's bloody cold outside, and that's why it's condensating in the first place. At the end of the day, you're breathing out moist.
Don't use that word. That's Simon's favourite word.
At the end of the day, you're breathing out moist air. Particularly bad if you've been cooking inside, especially if you've been cooking rice or pasta or anything like that, where a lot of water vapour's been going into the air. But look, there's really no way around it. Generally, what we do just to minimise it, it doesn't eliminate it, but just to minimise it, is just to keep the shower hatch open with the fan on extract, so it's just sucking some of that moist air out of the caravan. But like I said, it doesn't eliminate it, it does help. But do keep an eye on it, particularly with bunk vans and bunk mattresses. Generally, the ventilation around those mattresses is pretty poor. If it's not too cold outside, we will leave a window cracked or 2 just to get a little bit of airflow. Keeping the Siroccos on can help, just to keep the air moving around so it's not settling in one place. But like I said, they're all just stopgap measures. They won't actually eliminate it.
Keeping in mind that this is only an issue when you cold weather camp in certain times of the year. So it's not huge consideration most of the time, but certainly last year it was a huge consideration because I feel like it was an entire year of winter, whereas our first year was an entire year of summer. So last year it was a massive problem. First year it wasn't a problem at all. This year it's going to be a problem for a couple months and that's about it. You can buy those, are they called damp rids? You know, those things you used to keep
moisture absorber things.
Yeah, when we lived on the coast and just moisture everywhere.
Yeah, because I get condensation in the front toolbox sometimes as well, so I often have some of those moisture absorbing things in there just to stop things going rusty or
especially
corroding.
Tools and things like that you want to keep nice and in good working order, like chainsaws and things like that.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. So if you've got any hot tips for avoiding condensation, we are all ears, and I'm sure a lot of other people are as well, because nobody likes mold.
All right, so as we said earlier in the video, we are giving away another $100 voucher thanks to our mates at Everything Caravanning and Camping that you can spend on any of the thousands of products they got on their website there. All you need to do to enter that one is jump over and sign up to the Everything Caravanning and Camping newsletter. I will leave a link for that in the description below. Sorry, I did forget to do it on the off-grid video the other week, and thanks for those of you
People confused
there that reminded me of that, but I will make sure I put it in the bottom of this one. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and then just leave us a comment below. Let us know what you thought of this video. Let us know if you've got any tips or ideas, as we said, and let us know that you'd like to enter that competition, and we'll make sure that you go into the draw. We just pick someone at random every week, and we look forward to giving that one away again. All right, guys, heaps more awesome content coming up on the channel. As we said, the walk around video of our new van, some of the new exciting things we're going to be installing in the van. We're on our way north to the Brisbane Caravan Show as well. If you're going to be in Brisbane for the Brisbane Caravan Show, make sure you get in touch. Keep an eye on our socials on Instagram and Facebook. We'll let you know what sites we're going to be on. We're still finalising a few details. Not exactly sure where we're going to be hanging out just yet, but we'll keep an eye on our Instagram.
Lots of friends.
Keep an eye on Instagram and Facebook, and we'll let you know exactly where we're going to be, but we'd love to see as many of you there as possible. And if you're a patron and you're in the Brisbane area, hit us up on Patreon, let us know, and we'll see if we can squeeze in to come and have a beer. We'd love to meet as many of you as possible as well. All right, guys, that is it for this week. Can't wait to see you next week.
Next week we'll be in the Warren Bungles, and we'll show you all around this beautiful backyard.
Stay safe out there. Safe travels, everyone, and we'll see you next Sunday.
See you Sunday.